Can men and women just be friends?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You had to start with that, didn't you? Okay. Yes, I think that is possible. There is so little empirical work on cross-sex friendship or cross-gender friendship to say how it works or how it looks different from same-sex friendship. What I can tell you is the majority of people's friendships from when they're very young to when they're very old are same-sex friendships. People assort like that across the world. However, can they be friends, men and women? Absolutely, yes.
Why do you think there's this myth that exists where people genuinely are wholeheartedly convinced that men and women just can't be friends? Is that a lack of discipline on their end? Or is there any grounding that suggests that in certain cultures at certain ages, it's very difficult for them to maintain just a friendship?
I mean, I think there are a few things going on. One is that, so for example, men's preferences in female friends look a lot like men's preferences in female mates, right? And there's a lot of work that suggests that some of these cross-sex friendships, at least in adults, young adults, people your age, to my age, I'm calling myself young here, that's cool.
You're young.
I look young, but that's my facialist. So it seems like these preferences in mates and friends overlap a lot, and that people are sort of getting cross-sex friends who are backup mates. So maybe I'm married, but oh, well, that guy is pretty awesome. I'll be friends with him and keep him in the wings in case anything goes haywire with my partner, right? So there is some evidence that people's preferences look like that. At the same time, people do form these friendships that are lasting, are free of sex and sexual tension, at least to the people answering our survey questions. So women are less attracted to their male friends than men are to their female friends. So one of the things that might be going on is, yes, some people, particularly men, particularly young men, are befriending women, not to have a friend, but to have a future mate. And that's fine. And that even works pretty well. A lot of romantic partnerships that start as friendships, they seem to last longer and be more satisfactory, higher orgasm rates, some of the data would suggest even. So that's one possibility. A second possibility that I would like to put on the table is that people are just obsessed with sex. Not just people, but researchers too. So I talk about friendship all the time. And what I can tell you is that we study friendship way, 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 way less than we study romantic relationships. So people think about friendships, but even then they're like, oh, wait, there's the possibility of sex. It must be about that.
I wonder how much of this is an investment in the future and how much of it is for immediate benefit. Something like conveying status and the fact that as a man, you are able to keep multiple women interested in you, even if it is just platonically at first. Perhaps there's something beneficial to showcasing your ability to maintain connection with multiple people of a different sex.
Yeah, so you could think about that, as we do in the literature, as association value. So I could be have high association value or be a good friend to another woman even if I am able to sort of broker a deal between her and all these attractive men I have on my arm. So there is the possibility that who you know makes you a better friend, right? Does that make sense?
Dig into that for me more.
So our friends help us do things, right? But our friends' friends help us do things as well. So if you are able to introduce me to a bunch of hot British guys I would like to mate with, you would be an even better friend to me than if you wouldn't be able to do that. And so if I am a guy friend to you and you can introduce me to a bunch of beautiful women that I would like to mate with, that increases your association value to me. I find you to be a more attractive partner because you are the intermediary, essentially, between me and these women I might like to date or sleep with.
Well, this opens up the big question of the whole interview straight away. And that is, what actually is friendship for?
Oh, God, that's a really rough question. All right, if I'm a child, I would say friendship is for not hitting me and for helping me. If I'm an adult, I would say friendship is for emotional closeness and leaning on me. If I am an older adult, I would say it's simply companionship. So people themselves define friendship differently depending at their life stage, right? people across cultures define friendship differently. So in the UK even, you have a higher threshold for what you call a friend than what we do in the US. People have said this to me over and over again, especially French folks, but also in Poland, in Kenya, there are friends, right? And they are reliably having your back. But then there are sort of what Americans would call friends that are really somewhere between acquaintance and a good friend. So what we mean by the word differs by our age. It differs by our culture. And then the function of it, if I'm a researcher, and I'm just going to answer that as me, the researcher, friends help us. Friends are social insurance. So inevitably, we face times of illness and injury and other hardship, right? And recurrently throughout our sort of human evolution, that was true of us. It's a recurrent challenge. When you are most in need is when you need the most help and when you look like the worst bet to other people for reciprocity. And this is called the banker's paradox in banking. Banks don't lend money to people who need money. They lend money to people who have money, right? Because they want to get paid back. People who look like bad bets for reciprocity, people who need help, they're not the people who get help from strangers. So how do we get help when we're in need? We need somebody who has a stake in our continued welfare. And that's what friendship is to me. Somebody who has a stake in your continued welfare and helps you when you're in need. So friends are the way that, or they function to make sure that we survive our times of illness, injury, and other hardship, times that are inevitable.
Friends are almost a shortcut to enabling someone to have faith in you because they don't have the evidence that you deserve to be helped or that it would be useful for them to help you, but they have a stake as your friend. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently in the form of the fact that winners win and losers lose. And just when you need a helping hand the most is when you're probably least likely to get it.
Exactly.
Because people want to have something in return a lot of the time, whereas it seems like friendship and the labels associated with that are a way to actually step over that transactional hurdle.
Yeah, so we don't think about reciprocity in friendships. So what you're talking about, paying back, that's reciprocity, right? And if you and I are friends and we go to Starbucks and you pay for our drinks, and then I immediately give you exact change for my drink, you're going to be pissed off more than you're going to be happy. And yet that's reciprocity. That's not friendship. That's not the same thing. Friendship is letting somebody buy the drink this time, you get it next time. You have a stake in your continued welfare. You have an idea that this is going to continue into the future. And you know that you are going to help me and I am going to help you, even when I might be losing. I recently read this paper. I'm editing a special issue of Evolution and Human Behavior, our field's flagship journal on friendship. And I just read an incredible submission that's a mathematical model of friendship. And it says essentially, you get benefits from helping your friends, even when your friends don't know you're the person who helped them, and so they can't pay you back. They don't even know you were the one who gave them help. You benefit from your friend's existence and your friend's continued investment in you. And friendship really is that. It is the tide that lifts each other.
What do you think Gen Z get wrong about friendship?
That you need to meet in person sometimes. Sorry, I don't mean to be an asshole. I associate your generation with a lot of apps and never using the phone for anything but texting or apps. Am I wrong? You could tell me if I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Okay. So, all right. Friendship across the world is about mutual helping when we're in need. And you build this integrative spiral of upward valuation where I help you a little and you help me a little. We start to really rely on each other. That's how we build friendship. And so I am never going to build that if when I need a friend, they're not there for me, because instead of asking that friend for a little favor, I went to Uber and I got a ride, or I went to Waymo and I got a ride. Or if I'm sick and I need groceries, I went to Instacart. Or if I need somebody to hang my television, I don't ask my friend, I ask a TaskRabbit. If I outsource these things to people I don't have to talk to, I'm never going to have those vulnerable moments of asking for help and building that mutual sort of benefit. Yeah, that would be what I think you get wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm intrigued to hear about the impact of getting access to a larger tribe and what that means for friendship and the value of friends, it must be diluted completely when you're able to just use robots or AI to do tasks for you. I mean, what do you see going forward is going to happen when everything becomes more and more impersonal? And especially, I think, morality being a key piece in this. What happens when you detach humans from people in person is you also get this arm's length morality where you can't really gauge how your actions are actually affecting someone and what would be deemed as a normal, loyal friend thing to do, because it's all via text and it's all via these mediums where you can't see in real time how someone's facial expressions are varying as you speak to them. They're more interested in certain things, not interested in others. I can imagine that the quality of friendships, they can only go down when you don't have all these different ways of measuring how your actions impact your so-called friends.
Yeah, I mean, so our brains are wired for friendship, right? They're not wired for friendship over Zoom or friendship with chatbots. We can make a chatbot act like a really good friend and maybe even a better friend, than a human in some ways. But that chatbot is never going to, pet your head when you're sick, right? And sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need human contact. I cannot imagine a world in which the benefits of friendship accrue through talking to a chatbot alone. So friends are kind of a silver bullet. They are the conduit to better health, better happiness. Essentially, having friends is the next best thing you could do for your health behind quitting smoking, is what Robin Dunbar likes to say, my old advisor from Oxford. But truly, in this meta-analysis, social connection or lacking it is the same as on your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
It's insane. And yet we are at a place where particularly young people feel lonely, even if you're not socially isolated. 1 in 5 American men who is single has 0 friends, right? But maybe they feel okay because they have these chatbots. And yet, none of these things is going to replace the human experience. And you ask, what do I think is going to happen? I mean, what I think is going to happen is a really horrible sort of Morlock, Eloi kind of world in which you end up with a few people who are wealthy and well-off and happy and have the time to actually spend on human-to-human friendship. And you have other people who are so strapped for time that they are not able to actually spend their inelastic time resources on having friends, and they live less happy, less productive, less healthy mentally and physically, and shorter lives. That would be my prediction, is that we schism like that. I hope it doesn't happen. That would really suck. But I'm not going to have kids, and I'll probably die in 40 years, so fuck it.
What do you think are the best signifiers of you actually willing to be friends with someone? I can imagine as technology develops and as we get busier in our lives constantly, we're always perennially busy. And I spoke to a monk about this in a church on the podcast.
I saw that.
He likes to say to people when they go, I'm just really busy right now. He goes, I'm sorry to hear that, because it should be a bad thing to be busy. And they get completely caught off guard. So like, what? You're sorry to hear that I'm busy?
No, I'm virtuous. Look how awesome I am. I'm
exactly. There's this self-flagellation that's occurring where we like to gain status by saying that we're hard workers. And I've certainly fallen into this trap. Just exchanging time for the status of not having any time. So talk to me about some of the signifiers of actually willing to be friends with someone. I can imagine that now investing your time in someone is very valuable compared to any time in history ever, because no one has any time.
No one has any time. It is the hardest signal to fake, right? So money can mean different things to different people. Time, less so, right? If I'm really rich, the $100 means less to me than if I'm really poor. Time is the ultimate, even beautiful resource. And if I am investing time in something, my 60 minutes in something, that is an honest signal that I am there for it. And you really don't get anything like that. But people are spending, particularly your generation, more time alone and less time with friends. So it's not that you're spending more time at work or more time at the gym or more time doing God knows what with other people. It is actually more time alone and less time with friends. So if you are spending time with friends, yes, it's a great honest signal, but you're not. Why aren't you? What, your generation or you in particular? Why are you not spending more time with friends? Do you feel like you're spending time with friends when you're scrolling?
I think it's a lack of permission to spend time on trivial things, yet that's all we ever do. The difference is we've been fooled into thinking that scrolling online, it's like gambling, right? We always think that we're going to win the prize on the next scroll. We think that we're staying up to date with what's going on. We're in on the gossip. And it kind of feels educational because you have a bunch of TikToks telling you top tips about living a fulfilled life or whatever, like short, bite-sized content.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing at play there is we're fooled into thinking we're being productive when we're doing the least productive possible things. That's why we're isolating.
So you said trivial things. Will you say that again? You said...
trivial things, scrolling on TikTok.
Yeah.
Only engaging in social trends that don't actually contribute anything to you long term. So I think that's what's going on is this increased isolation comes from an illusion of connection with everyone else because we're online and we're seeing people constantly.
Yeah.
Yet we're not actually making friends.
Right. But tell me more about the permission to do trivial things part. Like, are you waiting for permission to befriend someone or... What do you...
Well, I think it's back to the busy point. It's we're in this competition and we're in this arms race, especially speaking as a young guy here.
Yeah.
We're desperately trying to top each other in this status hierarchy, outwork someone, out-earn them, grow a bigger podcast than them, because everything we do is documented.
Yeah, take that, Joe Rogan.
To sit and build Lego with one of your close friends feels like a diversion from the mission.
Okay, so this is really educational for me because what it suggests is that with my grad student, Haewon Hong, we need to do an economics of friendship. Because let me tell you what you will get if you actually spent that time doing Legos. Okay, so if you don't and you do this, you might get a lot of money and you can do amazing things with that. But with your friends, okay, like I said, having friends versus not, it's smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has the same impact on your health. Friends can lead to upward economic mobility. Friends can lead to greater productivity, innovation, and you can make more money. That is absolutely true because you are more innovative, you're working better, especially if you have friends at work. It can boost your mental health, so decreased anxiety and depression. It can just increase your well-being. So the best predictor of well-being in later life is just whether or not you have friends. That's it. All of these things are benefits of friendship, but there really are economic indicators as well. So in the U.S., we spend an estimated $7 billion a year on healthcare only for older adults, simply because they're lonely. I think lost wages in around $145 billion a year because people are stressed and they are absent from work. You are able to handle stress better and therefore less likely to get sick, less likely to be absent from work if you have friends. And so what this tells me is I need to give you all an economics of friendship so that you understand, okay, yes, it seems like you're just building Legos, but in reality, that's an investment in your future health, your future happiness, your future longevity, maybe even benefits to your offspring if you have friends.
How are they accurately measuring the impact of being lonely at such an old age?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways that people do it. I mean, sometimes people simply ask, how are you feeling? And they connect that up with health data from blood pressure, heart rate, times you're sick, when you die. So all-cause mortality, death from any cause, is greater among people with fewer friends. And unsurprising. But sometimes it's unique to friends. So it's not just always social support. People in Sweden, men in Sweden, are less likely to have heart attacks when they have friends. The same is not true if they're married. And I would even argue that you can be married and lonely, but you can't have a true friend and be lonely. So how do we measure these things? Physiology, typically, but we also ask people, because loneliness is sort of a subjective experience, right? It's like, how hungry are you for more social interaction? Things like social connection or being isolated or not, that's who do you contact in a day? Who are you seeing? And again, a lot of young men in particular, they go all day without seeing anybody else, or they offload their entire social existence and calendar to a female partner. There's a recent piece in maybe the New York Times that came out of a journal article in, I think it's Men and Masculinities on man keeping. Have you heard about this?
No.
Yeah, so I erroneously believed that it was about men waxing their junk. That's manscaping. I was schooled. Man-keeping is when women essentially set up play dates for their male friends, or for their male partners, to try desperately to get those male partners to have friends or social connections outside of the romantic relationship. It is fascinating to me. There is, at present, no known empirical work on this. With my postdoc, Hasagane Tessera, hopefully we will be actually sending out some questions on a nationally representative survey, and I can tell you what that says. But anecdotally, yeah, this happens. Women are desperate to get their male partners friends.
Why do you think so many people now are buying into this delayed friendship approach in their 20s, where they go, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, Jaimie, here. Decreased rates of depression, blah, 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 but I'm different. I'm on a mission.
Motherfucker,
and I
you're
need
not
to go.
different. Sorry. That was a Philadelphia reply. Yes.
I need to go lone wolf mode and get what I want, which is this job, this title, achieve insert thing, acquire insert shiny medal, then I can focus on friends.
Yeah, that's asinine and completely wrong. I mean, I could probably say that more nicely. That takes energy that I don't want to spend. Your friends help you achieve your fundamental goals. Your friends' mere existence help you be physically safer and physiologically better able to handle things like stress and disease. Okay, so that's awesome. But the mere presence of even friends that you don't like that much, they can connect you to status opportunities, mating opportunities, opportunities for other friendships, and even helping potentially take care of your kids and your family. So when you ask people, what do your friends do for you? Not just ideal friends, not just close friends, but friends you wish you could kind of get rid of, friends you don't like, or even ex-friends, on balance, those friends benefit you more than they hurt you. And so I would say that you have a completely wrong view of friendship there. Friendships only help you get where you're going. The problem, and I think the disconnect, is that people are thinking, oh, I need to spend time to make those friends. It's a lot easier to keep them once you have them. It's a lot harder to make them. And I think it's particularly hard to make them when you're starting from zero.
Okay, so someone's accepted that they should probably go after having a few friends.
Yes, listen to me. Go have a friend. Yeah.
How do they balance making friends with not trying too hard and too soon to have people specifically to hold on to as friends? What's the balance here?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're asking me, like, how do you not come off as a desperate, needy friend, right? Is that part of it? Or
I think part of it is not pushing people away, but part of it's also not opening up yourself to risk based on false friend selection.
Okay, so false friend selection. So you mean, what if this person is exploiting me? Yeah? Okay. I mean, I think that is less of a problem than people might be worried about. There isn't a lot of great work on exploitative friends, but people end one-sided friendships pretty easily. Yeah, it's uncomfortable to end a friendship. You could always ghost someone. Nobody likes that, but you can, especially in the early stages. But part of it, too, it seemed like you were asking, how do I come off as a good prospective friend to somebody? How do I make somebody want to befriend me if I need friends, right? And we have some of the first data that seem to suggest that is a real problem. People don't want to be friends with somebody who has no other friends. So there's this whole area of work on singlehood. Have you heard about this?
No.
So a lot of people get romantically partnered. That seems to be the norm. But there are some people who are single, and what do we think of them? And that work is kind of, equivocal as to whether people stigmatize romantic singles. But often we think, okay, romantic singles, we give them the short end of the stick, and we think it's normal to be in a partnership. So what we did in our lab was ask, well, what about friend singles? What about people who have no close friends? So instead of having no partner, you have no close friends. And when we ask people, what do you think of this person who has no close friends? They might be great. They're, successful and extroverted, etc., but they have no close friends. They think that person is a piece of shit. We didn't ask that exactly, but they stigmatize them. They think that they are less warm. They think they're less competent. They think a person with no friends is less likely to have a romantic partner or to be able to get one. They think somebody without a romantic partner has friends, though. So people really do have an idea that somebody with no friends is wrong, weird, and bad. That's probably not true because so many people have zero friends and there aren't that many wrong, weird, bad people out there.
Well, what's your advice to someone that feels like they've always kind of been an outcast? They don't belong in the classroom or in the extracurricular sports games or even at the computer club or something stereotypically more nerdy because they just feel most comfortable at home by themselves. What's the piece of advice for someone who's struggling with this problem of literally starting from zero?
Yeah, so there are two things that I would say. One is being uncomfortable is okay. When I moved to LA, I barely left the house without my partner, and I was just in my lab or I was with that partner. And then I decided, this is bullshit. I'm going to live a life in LA. I'm going to go see LCD Sound System. I'm going to go to the Hollywood Bowl. I'm going to go to Intelligentsia and have coffee and look at hot dudes in Venice because they have thick thighs. And I did, but I remember taking a Waymo there the first time I was going by myself, and I was really nervous and uncomfortable. I am going to sit by myself in a place where I don't know anybody. And yet, I'm not that uncomfortable now. I love it now. I can go to my coffee shop and I see the same people even if I don't talk to them. I'll hang out at, there's this place called Deus Ex Machina in Venice. It's the coolest coffee shop. And Lulu works there. And I'll just chat with her, get my flat white, and go do my work. So you could build comfort from discomfort. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the way to really... It is so important to have friends. Being alone in your house might be comfortable for some people. That discomfort is worth it.
Let's get on to the difference between male friendship and female friendship.
Right.
What are guys that want to hang out with me actually valuing there? And what are girls hanging out with girls valuing?
Yeah, so people have preferences in friends, right? We all want our friends to be nice. We don't want our friends to be mean, as they behave toward us, at least. But men and women tend to have different preferences and different priorities in what they want in friends. Women in particular want emotional support from their female friends. And men are okay with a bunch of different things, but they wouldn't mind somebody who has sort of status to rub off on them, knowledge to impart. These friendships can sometimes take on really different shapes and look really different. Even the number of friends that men and women have in terms of their close groups, it's different. Women tend to form these really close, emotionally intense dyadic friendships. So they have one or two other best friends, right? Whereas men, they have these looser multi-male friendship groups. What's fun to me is that in the 1960s, folks like an author named Lionel Tiger, which is the best fucking name, not as good as Michael Bang Peterson of Political Psychologist, but close. Lionel Tiger would say that men's friendships were the true zenith of friendship. That's the acme. That's the thing you want to emulate is men's friendships because women are so competitive with one another that they can't really be friends. And you fast forward to 2025, and now it feels to me like we're saying women's friendships are the paradigm. That's the zenith now. They're emotionally close, they're open, they're vulnerable with each other. Men, why aren't you being like women, right? So it's sort of flipped as to what it's supposed to be. And in my view, it's not supposed to be anything. Men's friendships just look a little different. They're looser. They're maybe less vulnerable, but maybe they don't need the same things in friends that women do.
There's also the difference of how overt competition is within friends versus how covert it is. And I think that varies greatly between sexes. Dr. Warren Farrell speaks about this. He says that the commerce of masculinity is the trading of wit-covered put-downs.
I like that. I am surprised that he says that that's the commerce of masculinity. We're a much nicer group of people, right, in this day and age than maybe we were living in caves. Okay. But when we talk about women's competition, that's the covert put down. That's the, oh, she's trying so hard, bless her heart. Or,
well,
oh,
flesh that out for me a little bit more.
Yeah.
What do you mean with this covert put down?
So bless her heart is often a Southern version of go fuck yourself. It means, and Tanya Reynolds talks about this kind of a thing, or she's trying so hard, like, oh, look at that sweet idiot. Like, she wants to be attractive. I could see that she's trying, but she really just does not look good in that dress. These are indirect put-downs or covert put-downs. And what it allows women to do is be aggressive and manipulate what you, the audience, thinks about the target without making me, the speaker, seem like a bitch. And that is hugely important in female social spheres. Whereas men, you're allowed to hit each other. In fact, like that's how Mark Wahlberg made Friends. I think he just kicked somebody and they became friends. That might just be all of Boston. I don't know.
Well, I wonder how this maps onto the bigger picture here. Something like victim culture that's been unfolding over the last few years, I think fueled by social media. Maybe it's the case that this victimhood is just a way to covertly attack other tribes on a much larger scale. So it's not just this individual thing of, oh, look at her, bless her. It's look at this entire group and they're putting us down because of this and we are the victims. By playing the victim, you can complain about other people and it kind of just makes you look innocent.
Yeah, so you are essentially manipulating the audience's view of the group you're saying attacked you without looking like, oh, woe is me necessarily. Or maybe the woe is me is good attention in this way or positive attention.
I suppose what it prevents is a loss of trust in you as a friend. Because if you're complaining about people to other people, they're going to clock on that when you're not with that person, you're probably also bitching about them.
Yeah, that
Whereas
is
masking
so true.
it in this victimhood means, okay, they're not going to complain about me behind my back because I'm a good person and I'm not going to put them down.
Yeah, so in my lab, we have some work on venting. So does your generation know what venting is, or is this like a weird...
Talk to me about venting.
So in the literature, it's considered the unrestrained expression of emotions, but people just say, I need to vent, or I need to get it off my chest, or God, I just have to vent about this situation, right? They just need to talk to another person about it. What people have thought for about, 75 years now is that the reason people vent is a Freudian reason. It's catharsis. So on that view, the mind is like a steam engine. And if we don't release our pent-up frustration, we explode. So the key prediction from a Freudian view is that venting functions to decrease venters' anger. Except we've known for over 50 years that that's wrong, okay? Venting doesn't do that. In fact, if you vented to me about one of your friends, you might even get angrier afterwards. So the opposite can be true.
The production of this video is made possible by gear from DFI Rentals. Book your next film equipment instantly at dfirentals.com.
So the Freudian view of what venting does is completely wrong. Please throw that out, stab it, and just, dispose of the body. What venting might actually do, at least in friendships, is be a covert way to make you, the person I'm venting to, prefer me and preferentially support me over the person I'm venting about. So it is covert competition. It's covert derogation. I am essentially, whether or not I'm conscious of it, right? I am manipulating your affections. And people deny that they compete for friends, but that is impossible. People compete for friends, not just to have a friend, but the amount of affection that their friends give them.
Give me an example.
Yeah, so if I vent to you about, name a friend that you have.
Jack.
Okay, if I vent to you about Jack, those are my initials. I like it. Okay, so if I vent to you about Jack and I'm saying venting makes me look like the victim, which is why it's connected in my head here. So like, just so frustrated. Jack, we were supposed to go to dinner and he canceled on me at the last minute again. So I am venting about Jack and doing it in that way where it's about me and my frustrations and my sadness. That allows me to color negatively your perceptions of Jack and do it in such a way that you don't think I'm aggressive and you don't think I'm manipulative. If anything, you are going to discount your affection for Jack, so have less affection for Jack, and potentially even more affection for me, because I am sharing this sort of secret evaluative information with you, building trust with you, saying, I don't like Jack. Jack's not good. You're good. I'm good. So it manipulates your affection for me and for Jack. And what that means is that, so we sort of have these friend rankings, right? You have your best friend, a second best friend, a third best friend. And we don't always think about it like that, but that's kind of how friendship is. And we're nicer to our closer friends. We like our closer friends better. We're more likely to help our closer friends over our less close friends. It behooves us to get higher up in that friend ranking, and we compete for friends, and venting is one of the ways that we do it.
How often do people actually vent rather than provide value? Because what I see opening up from what you're speaking about is essentially the two options, which is provide value or inflict cost.
Yeah.
And William Costello spoke to me about this in the frame of sexual relationships and how misogyny is potentially an evolutionary function because you're putting down a female who you're not good enough to be with. So instead of rising to her standard and making her desire you, you're going to drag her down and make her feel so worthless that you are now the best option for her.
Yeah, so we would call that, so it's derogation, right? So you're derogating a rival, and you can make them look like a worse friend, right? If you're competing for friends in a friend market, if you make somebody look like a worse friend, they are less likely to take the friendship slot that you want. So if I make Jack look like a shitty friend to you, you are less likely to be friends with Jack and more likely to be friends with me. But another route that you could take is improving yourself. I could become, or at least appear to be, a better friend. So right now, if you look at, I'm going to nerd out for a second. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Okay. So with my grad student, Haewon Hong, we got the abstracts of 27,000 peer-reviewed journal articles from the top journals in social psychology. About 3% of those deal with friendship, period. So we don't study friendship, which is bullshit and stupid. But that's fine. That's a different story. If you then search those abstracts to see, okay, of these 27,000 journal articles from the 1940s to 2024, how have people talked about competing for friends? Because we know we compete for mates, right? There's so much literature that Will's talking about, that lots of people talk about, on how we compete for mates. We derogate women's attractiveness. We derogate men's income or masculinity. We try to look prettier to compete for mates, dress better to compete for mates, particularly as women, or we try and make more money or bulk up and get more muscly if we want to compete for mates as men often. We know that we do that. We know how we do that. How have people talked about it when it comes to friends? And they haven't. Not a single article looks at friendship competition. I would argue that our work on venting is one of the first. It's about how people compete for friends. And so with my student, Vanessa Zankic, we are about to send out a study on 6 continents asking people, what do you value in friends? When you make friends or want to make friends and look good, Do you emphasize those things? And when you want somebody to look like a shitty friend, so you want to devalue a rival, what traits do you devalue? And these things should all co-vary together if we have an existing psychology built to help us compete for friends. And we absolutely should. We absolutely do, but we just haven't paid attention to it yet. So I get really frustrated about this. I'm very sorry. Yeah.
Well, hold my hand and walk me through this. Why wouldn't someone just want to be overtly competitive? What is the advantage of being covert if you can just smash the competition every time overtly? And why does it vary specifically between men and women so much?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different reasons that women might prefer sort of indirect social, relational, or covert competition. They're all different words for the same kind of constellation of things. One of the big reasons is that it affects women's reputations more negatively than it affects men's. Being seen as a bitch is less good than is being seen as an asshole, which can be seen almost positively sometimes, right? So there's that sort of sociocultural component.
But why?
If you...
Why is it better to be seen as an asshole than a bitch?
You can be an asshole. You have the resources to expend. You have the resource holding power or muscles or money or whatever it is that you can just be an asshole and live that way. For women, the reputational benefits of being a bitch they really don't accrue, particularly among other women. Women do not like other women who are overtly competitive. And so men are fine with other men who are. And there's a difference in those social ecologies. Men are fine with other men who compete. Women are not fine with other women who compete overtly. And then there's an evolutionary explanation that women's bodies are simply potentially more fragile, that women's reproductive resources, eggs, are more expensive, that women are more integral and valuable for the life of their offspring, all of which might be true. And so if women are engaging in overt competition or physical competition, there's greater risk, and that risk is just not worth it. So folks like Anne Campbell, the late, great Anne Campbell, would say that indirect aggression is the tool of women for those reasons. It does seem, now that we know more about these different kinds of aggression and who uses them when, that men use almost as much indirect aggression as women do. It's just that women don't compete physically. They don't punch each other as much as men do. So, the Amazons is a beautiful idea in myth, but we can't find archaeological evidence of large-scale coalitional competition among women. It just doesn't exist.
Something that's been fascinating me for a while now is linking all of this in to social media that dominates our culture now, especially Gen Z. And I wonder how much of social media and the power, the addictive power that's there, is playing on all of these specifically intrasexual competition things, both for relationships, sexual relationships, but also just friendships. Something like access to a comment section and being able to weigh up how many of your female friends, especially if you're a girl, are commenting saying you look pretty versus how many aren't. Yeah. I can imagine that that's a large reason why social media is so effective, and also why, when you look at rates and trends of depression and increases in anxiety, young girls seem to be harmed the most, directly correlated with the launch of Instagram and algorithms in 2012, feeding them what it thinks they want to see.
Yeah, so that is entirely possible. I'm still baffled by why it's particularly liberal folks, liberal women, and even liberal men more than, conservative men, who are having this Great Depression linked to potentially social media. I don't know if you have any ideas.
Without speaking out of turn, I wonder if it's liberalism at the moment seems to be linked inextricably to the pursuit of freedom, and with that comes the ability to do anything and everything. I think that's what's causing suffering. So with the depression thing and social media, it's because people who are left-wing and more liberal, they are prioritizing being able to post bikini pics and suggestive things and start an OnlyFans and engage in all of these activities that don't actually give them the most fulfillment possible. It's just superficial showcases of freedom and look what I can do. Whereas on the right, anecdotally here, a lot more of my friends that are right-leaning, they're just not on apps. Like if I could do a heat map of people that are my friends that are left-wing versus right-wing, I can imagine that probably the majority of the proper right-wing conservatives, especially religious, which we can talk about, they're not posting thirst traps for obvious reasons on Instagram. They're engaging in the real world more. And you see this in studies reflected that people who were religious, they dealt better with the pandemic because they had more connection, they had community. Whereas the left-wingers, perhaps they're falling prey to the algorithms gamifying this intersexual competition and wanting them to keep on pushing the boat out, keep on pushing the limits of their freedom, waiting for their friends to come into the comments, swarming, going, slay, pretty, amazing, and all of this performative stuff to showcase friendship.
I mean, that sounds really exhausting and like a lot of pressure as a friend if you feel like you have to be the person who is scrolling through so that you don't miss your friend's post and then you have to post on that post. That sounds horrific to me.
I get asked all the time, like, did you not view my story?
Wow. Yeah, I'm very glad I'm old right now. Really glad I'm old. So one of the weird things to me, though, is that I think there's probably a similar schism going on politically when it comes to moving. So I sometimes worry that in academia, we are so focused on people who are just like us that we forget that there's an entire world out there that might, in my case, do friendship a little bit differently. And so the man-keeping thing is really probably very resonant for women who have careers and they move to college, maybe move to grad school, and then move to a different place, right? And so it's harder to make and keep friends when you're moving so much. But there are a lot of people who tend to live in one place, and there are probably people who tend to be more conservative than liberal. They don't leave the town they grew up in. And they don't have to find new friends, make new friends, face all of these challenges of maintaining friendships across state or national lines. So I wonder if we're sort of missing people who do friendship really well because we don't pay attention to them. These same people that aren't on apps, these same people who are probably spending real time with real other people. And maybe they have something to teach us about friendship that we just haven't asked them to teach us and haven't been paying attention to.
What are our preferences generally for age difference in our friendships?
That's a really good question. In terms of the data, we don't fucking know. Again, like we just haven't done the work. We have studies upon studies about age-related mate preferences, right? We know what men want across their lifespans. They want younger and younger and younger women as they age, right? Women tend to always want a guy about 2 to 7 years older than them. For friends, we've asked them, and I have data from maybe 12 countries now that I have to get off my ass and analyze. But what I can tell you is that people end up becoming friends with people who are the same age. I don't know if that's a preference, but pretty similar ages. In the West, that might just be a relic of the schooling system, right? Because we end up with age mates. It's a little bit different in small-scale societies where you don't have the school system that's, everybody born in 1986 is in school together. But there are also real benefits from cross-generational friends. And having those kinds of friends as well, or friends who aren't like us and maybe don't think like us, maybe it's harder to coordinate. Maybe we're not shaping the world in our own image, but there can be real benefits there too.
Yeah, well, it'd be fascinating to see what the actual preference is rather than just what is the case. Because speaking for myself, I love having older friends. I think it's the most valuable thing you can have. And especially when I was working for trigonometry before, I was spending 95% of my time with a bunch of 45-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
I was able to be passed down wisdom. I always felt like I was the dumbest one in the room because I was. And that's a great
feeling.
thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it becomes more complex when you have people that are at a similar age to you and similar point in their life. It can be great and it can really fuel you and motivate you when you're in it together. But I feel like there are more complications there when there's not someone who's older that takes the clear pastoral role, because the 20-year-old isn't going to take the role for the 45-year-old and look after them. They're going to do their bits and they're going to come through with their naivety and youth and energy. But they're not going to mentor the 45-year-old with 2 kids about how to have a relationship. It's just not how it's going to be. So I'll be fascinated to pick your brains on something I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is different skill sets and different resources that you have to offer friends and how they impact your relationship. I mean, I've been in a few situations where I'm really bad with money. Like, I'm not bad at getting money, but I don't like doing it. It just doesn't cross my mind immediately. First thing is, I want to be sat behind a podcast mic chatting to you for 5 hours and nerding out. I don't want to focus on the business end of a podcast, yet it's important. So a lot of the people I've worked with and traveled with, they're business guys and they know how to make money, but they don't know how to produce a podcast. So we'll exchange resources where I'll provide the skills and they'll provide the money as well as their skills in a separate region.
That's some really nice mutualism you've got on there.
But the problem is, it comes with certain societal attachments and prioritizations of different resources. For example, money's much easier to quantify. So earlier this year when I was traveling around with friends, and they were kind of paying me to make vlogs for them and produce high quality content, there's a real value there for me. And they wouldn't be able to do their channels without me making it all happen. But they're the ones funding the whole thing. So it's easy to put them on a pedestal and go, okay, you're the boss here. So I suppose what I'm getting at in a very long-winded and multi-directional way is, how do you organize the dynamics of a friendship and know when someone is in charge and when to switch and someone else actually knows better than the other person?
Okay. So, I mean, I don't think I'd use the words in charge, but basically you need to be getting similar care and resources back, even if they're not in kind, right? So you don't want to, friendships where you spend $45 and then I spend $45, maybe not as beneficial as friendships where I pay you to do the vlog and I get all this attention and you get the money, right? We are paying each other back but not in kind. And so I think one of the hardest things to do is understanding, am I getting enough value out of this friendship? And this is one of those other weird things where, God, I feel like such a fucking old lady when I say this, but your generation, there's so much self-care and, I need to prioritize myself. And so I'm going to cut off this friend because they're not good enough to me. I don't know how people are quantifying that, but I do know that your generation cuts off more friends than people used to. Older folks have fewer friends. They jettison the shitty friends, and they're actually much happier for it. You guys are lonely as hell. You can't make new friends. And sorry, not all of you, but you can't make new friends, and you're still out here being like, bye friend, bye friend, bye friend, like one's at a strip club. Like, I don't understand that. Because you're prioritizing self-care and maybe that friend was bad for you or they were a toxic friend. Everything is toxic. I sound like such an old, angry person right now.
You really
Get off
don't.
my lawn. So I do think paying attention to the benefits that you get from friends, even if it's not the benefits that you give to friends, is something that's extremely valuable. And it's really useful to be mindful and intentional about that. What are you giving as a friend? And what are you getting as a friend? Maybe that's, I tend never to give advice because we don't really have empirically backed advice on how to be a good friend. But if I were to give advice, it's probably that.
Yeah, I suppose the danger there is if you're constantly tossing up this equation of what you're giving to a friend,
Mhm.
it can become very transactional very
Yes.
fast.
Yeah, and you don't want that. So that paper that I reviewed, this amazing work, I'm just going to say it's by Pat Barclay because when this comes out, I'll probably be allowed to say that, I hope. And he's a brilliant scientist. And essentially, the math works out that if you are giving to a friend, you are still getting enough that it's worth it. So even if this friend doesn't know you're the one giving and you can't get it back, helping your friends helps you. I think maybe we've forgotten that, or maybe we've stopped making that meaningful because help I give to a friend isn't help that I request back, because instead I'm going to ask Instacart or Uber or TaskRabbit or Waymo or Bands in Town or ChatGPT. I could just go on and on. I use these two. I'm a hypocrite.
How does the length of a friendship affect what's prioritized? I can imagine looking at all of these theories about game theory and the way people interact with each other. If you know that you're going to be in a form group in a British secondary school where you see each other every morning without fail for 5 years, you may prioritize different things and interact differently with the friends that you acquire compared to someone that you know you're only going to see for 2 years max. And if you want to, you can ditch them after that. Or to take it to the extreme, you're only going to be with them for a week in a different country at a summer camp.
Yeah.
How does that impact friendship?
I mean, now you're talking behavioral economics to me, and that's sexy as hell. So it's the difference between a one-shot game like a prisoner's dilemma, where you should just
Flesh that out for me
exploit.
for anyone
So-
that hasn't heard the prisoner's
So
dilemma.
a prisoner's dilemma, if we both cooperate, maybe we both get 3 points. So me and my partner are caught by the police after maybe having done a crime. Okay. And my partner / accomplice is in one room with Larry Briscoe from Law & Order, and I'm in another room with somebody else that I don't care about from Law & Order. And both of the cops are trying to make us rat on the other. So the deal is that if I rat, I get no jail time and my partner gets 5 years. If I stay silent, we both get 3 years. If we both rat, we both get 3 years if I stay silent. So the payoffs are essentially in a matrix such that the best thing for me is to fuck my partner. Okay? Just
Not literally.
Not literally. They're in another room anyway.
Although that's a win if you can fuck them both metaphorically and physically.
I feel like that's 90% of Netflix.
If we're being utilitarians here, that's the maximum pleasure for at least one of us.
God willing. So the best thing for me is to rat on my partner, get no time, right? And if it's a one-shot interaction, that probably works. But if it's an iterative game, Robert Axelrod did a tournament of how do you make the most out of this? How do you make the most out of a game? And the most out of the prisoner's dilemma that you can get is playing tit for tat. What is tit for tat? It says that if we are playing this prisoner's dilemma, what I should do is cooperate with you first. Be nice first. Be the good guy first. And then if you defect, I copy you. But if you cooperate with me, then I keep cooperating with you. So I just tit for tat. I copy my partner's behavior. And that is how you get the most out of a prisoner's dilemma. I'm going to explode this by saying that I don't think friendship is always a prisoner's dilemma. I think it's a prisoner's dilemma, which is one economic game, at the same time as being this beautiful von Neumann game that is integrated into that, a simple majority game. Basically, we've been looking at friendship as a dyadic dilemma. It's not. Friendships exist in these wider worlds where our friends have other friends, they interact with other people, and these friend-other interactions can have potentially profound effects on us and our outcomes. And so prisoner's dilemma, though beautiful, is probably way too simple for the complex social world that we live in, which is a network. But same kind of easy thing. In a simple majority game, there are 3 players. So it's the simplest version of a simple majority game. 3 players. If we pick each other, we each get a point, and the unpicked player, Jack, poor your friend Jack, he loses half a point. If nobody picks anybody, nobody gets any points. And so it pays in the real world of friendship to cooperate with somebody that you know is going to cooperate back with you. So it's not totally dissimilar to the prisoner's dilemma, but it does make you realize that friendship is so much more complex than we thought about it before. Because in a prisoner's dilemma, I just need to model what my partner's going to do. My outcomes depend on my decisions vis-a-vis them. In a simple majority game, my outcomes depend on how I decide to behave, how my partner decides to behave, but vis-a-vis a third party. Sorry, I get really nerdy when we start talking about the math of friendship. I will woosah and cool it.
Well, how do we take that into something physical and actionable for people to take home? Because I've watched these videos recounting this game of trying to get all the top mathematicians in the world, chess players, scientists, to come up with something that beats game theory. And they come up with these complex equations to maximize all opportunity for all sides. And they get crushed by the tit-for-tat approach every time. That's what wins. But this is all theoretical and highfalutin here, and it's got nothing to do with the more complex friendship element of this. So what are some actionable takeaways for people to engage with at home?
Okay, so first, cooperate. Be a good friend. Leave your house. Be the nice person first. You probably do not realize that other people want to be your friend. Other people want to talk to you. Other people want to be talked to by you. You doing that first invites the benefits. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing would be paying attention to the benefits that you're getting from the friends that you have. It is much harder to make new friends than it is to keep the friends that you have. And we could game that out too. But in lieu of talking about the math of it, just trust me on that one. It's easier to keep the friends that you have than make new ones. Some work suggests it takes 200 hours to make a new friend. It doesn't take 200 hours to keep a friend in the same amount of time. So just realizing who's there, valuing them, and trying to interact with them. The third thing I'll say is reconnecting with old friends, also easier than making new friends, just in terms of the cost benefits of time, right? So if there's somebody that you knew, but your life moved on or you moved away or they had a kid and you didn't, try and reconnect with that person because it is a lower cost strategy to get some really big benefits than going out there and trying to make a new friend.
I want us to go back to this age piece, even though you've said you have no fucking clue with certain elements of it.
I will say that all the time. I give talks about friendship and people are like, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. What about that? I don't know. We need other people to do this work. Or, hey, come be a grad student in my lab. And hey, come fund this work, especially your business friends. Yeah.
I wonder how much easier it would be to maintain a friendship when there's that bigger age gap. With these clear-cut roles, again, it just seems to me intuitively to make sense that if you keep on coming with this youth and exuberance and they keep on mentoring you, you can form a pretty strong relationship. And I feel that there's this stability with all the lovely people I've had the chance to speak to on my podcast. Whenever I do keep contact with them, I'm much more relaxed about it. And I feel like I have permission to ask them questions and get life advice. And it seems like they quite enjoy doing that as well.
Yeah.
My friend always tells me, the best way to get someone to like you is to get them to do favors for you.
Yes,
because they feel like a good person.
That's the Ben Franklin effect.
Right.
That's what it's called.
Whereas with people your age, I think it's more exciting and there's more there to latch onto. But it certainly comes with its complications.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a layer of what you're talking about deals with so similarity among age mates, right, is going to be higher. So if you think about two 20-year-old women, they're going to be more similar than a 20-year-old woman and a 45-year-old woman. But that similarity isn't just beneficial. That similarity can also breed competition, right? And so there are costs and benefits to friendship with age mates that you might not have with friendships that are more mentory or with people who are older than you are. So a 20-year-old woman and a 45-year-old woman, unless it's like some weird-ass movie, not going to be competing over the same guy, right? Probably not going to be competing over the same job, right? So the costs of competition that exist in relationships are going to be lowered. The benefits might be different than the benefits of an age mate, but the benefits are going to be there and they might even be higher. So the benefits to the younger person, it's going to be all of this knowledge, right? Mentorship, connections. The benefits to the older person might also be knowledge and mentorship and connections too, right?
Yeah.
Because you know all sorts of cool things that I don't know. You know this drink. You know the person that makes this drink. I know the weird psych people you might want to interview. Those are totally different worlds. And when they come together, it's pretty cool.
I think this is all just me wanting to go down the route of asking you why I'm so attracted to older women.
Wow, you sound like many of my friends.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
How does this spill over into sexual relationships?
Why are
what do
you
people
so
prefer
attracted to
age-wise?
older women? So, I mean, there's a comfort that women have as they age. Their sex drive actually increases. They're probably more knowledgeable. There are all of those possibilities. I don't know. I mean, I'm not that kind of psychologist. You want me to ask you about your mother? I can ask you about your mother. I'm not asking you about your mother.
You're going to go Sigmund Freud mode.
Yeah, I just never will do that. But we do have some data that like 18-year-old boys, for example, prefer 23, 24, 25-year-old women. It's maximal fertility. So 18-year-old boys like the same women as 60-year-old men. It's the particular age and physiological features of a, let's say, 23-year-old woman. She's at peak fertility. So that might be what you like. How old are you?
20.
Jesus Christ, you're so young. Oh my God. Yeah. So when you say older woman, do you mean like a 55-year-old or do you mean like because I can introduce you to someone, or do you mean more like a 25-year-old?
Yeah, like 28.
28. Okay. Yeah. You just want fertility and knowledge.
Okay. Well, jokes aside here,
Mm-hmm.
getting to the point with this, what fascinates me is stuff that like is classic textbook bus and that Costello's been speaking about recently as well. He just released this paper about male sexual preferences when unrestrained by the actual physical access they have to women around them.
Mm-hmm.
How did he measure this? By looking at sex dolls and what sex dolls men order. Because with a sex doll, you can customize it and you're not limited by coat of going, I like 5'4" women more than 5'5", but actually it's the case that there are just more 5'4" women. So it's swaying your preferences.
So you could just create the ideal physiological form in a sex doll. Okay.
And
all right.
What he found was that all the signifiers of potential fertility in the future and longevity, ability to have multiple kids over years, that was what men seemed to be most attractive to.
So cues of
Nubility.
Future reproductive value is what we'd say. Okay.
Rather than peak fertility.
Okay, so it's not just that you can have a kid with me right now if we were to have sex, but it's that you could have that kid and the next group of kids.
Exactly.
That makes some sense. But I do want to go Freud on Will and ask Will, like, why are you asking this question, Will?
Well,
what's his relationship with his mother?
I said to him on WhatsApp, I can imagine you just in the lab with the measuring tape, looking at all the features and foot size of sex dolls, and it makes me crack up. So I'm sorry, Will.
Oh my God, I'm doing this wrong. I should have studied something else. But other labs are, using what is it called? There's an actual word for it, the thing that measures the hardness of a penis.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh no. There's. I could tell you who to ask, but yeah. I have studied the wrong thing. Friendship is boring. It is certainly no erection or sex doll.
But yeah, the point being, it seems that sexually, men are selecting for not just the instant, it's also the investment in future and ability to pass on the gene over multiple years with this same woman. The investment's worth it. And I wonder how linked that is to friendship, and if people would prefer friends the same age because they're going to grow old at the same pace, and therefore they can kind of go through life lessons forever.
Yeah.
Or if you would want to have an older mentor that you then discard of in place for a younger, fresher one when the time comes.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that is different between friendship and traditional romantic relationships is that you have multiple friends and one romantic partner. And so you don't necessarily have to make the same trade-offs. You can have a sort of group or array of friends that includes an older mentor and some same age mates. Whereas if you're picking a single romantic partner, you have to pick one, the older, the same age. So that's a little bit different in friendships than romantic relationships. That said, I do think people are attuned to the future or the shadow of the future when it comes to these relationships. So I am not going to invest in somebody as a future friend if, I move to LA and, okay, we're going to get coffee, but, you say you're moving out of LA next week, as many people are. I don't know why. It's the best place in the world that I've lived, except for Philadelphia, but that's fine. Sorry, Oxford. Yeah, so there is a sort of shadow of the future. Are you going to be there in the future? Are you going to help me in the future? Are you going to exist in the future? Certainly, it's not necessarily about reproductive value, right? It's not, are you going to carry my genes?
No. How else do relationships sexually and platonically interlink?
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of people, particularly for men, their best friends are their female partners. Folks like Eli Finkel have spoken about how, particularly in America, we want our romantic partners to also be our best friends, and that might be asking too much. That's an interesting case. So is your partner your best friend? Maybe, maybe not. But one of the ways that they do interlink, other than being friends with your partner, or best friends with your partner, is that at least at the end of the day, you are friends with your partner, right? It's not a purely sexual relationship. Many of the benefits of friendship overlap with the benefits of romantic relationships. And romantic relationships function better when you are also friends with one another. I will say, so work by a research scientist who works in my lab and Ben Carney's lab, this amazing guy, Victor Kaufman, suggests that people in unhappy romantic relationships are actually pretty happy overall if they have good friends. So you can sort of compensate with friendship. Point being, I think if we knew what made a good friendship, we could teach people not only how to have good friendships, but how to have better romantic relationships, because there is this interlinkage that you're talking about.
Do we optimize for kind friends?
No. No, and thank God we don't, because I'd have no fucking friends. I am a not kind person. I can just say bitch. I can just say bitch. I am a bitch. But so is my best friend, and you will absolutely see that if you look at her face. Google Keela Williams. She looks so mean, like an angry little bat. Sorry, Keela, I love you. It's a compliment coming from me. She knows this. All right, so people think that you want friends who are kind and that you don't want friends who are mean. Yes, but that makes sense if your friends only ever behave toward you, right? You probably have people you don't like in the world. Okay. You don't have to name any of them, but let's give a name. Tom Brady, perhaps.
Let's go with Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Okay, so Jack is your friend. Tom Brady is your enemy. Jack and Tom Brady might come into contact come into contact at some point. And if Jack is going to see, I like Tom Brady now because he's so nice to Jalen Hurts, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. So if Jack is nice to Tom Brady, that might piss you off a little bit.
I might get a bit jealous.
Yeah, you might get a bit jealous. But the benefits that Jack is giving to Tom Brady can be used by Tom Brady to negatively impact you and your outcomes. Not great. So what we've found in some of our work is that, if you ask people, do you want your friends to be nice? Yeah. Do you want your friends to be mean? No. Because people are thinking about how they want their friends to behave toward them, right? In reality, we want our friends to be nice, but we want them to be nice to us. We want them to be nicer to us than they are to other people. And we, in fact, want them to be more vicious than they are nice when they're behaving toward our Tom Bradys. Because he cheats at football and also kisses his kids on the mouth, which is weird. Sorry.
Sounds like a pope.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is basically a pope. He's the Pope of America. That's how I would frame it.
So he also diddles his children.
Let's not make any accusations and get this show even more cancelled than it's already going to be.
I am so sorry, friend. Yeah.
What do you see going forwards as the biggest steps for Gen Z to make to stop being isolated, stop prioritizing this solo monk mode? I'm not going to speak to anyone, both sexually and platonically. I'm just going to go lone wolf mode and grind out and win and conquer, man. What are the biggest steps going forward to stop us being such an isolated generation?
I mean, like throwing your phones in the ocean probably would do it. But the biggest steps are to really stop giving lip service to friendship and genuinely value it and recognize its value, right? So everybody knows that people want to have romantic partnerships, want to have jobs, want to have maybe families and those kinds of things. Fine, but we forget about all of the benefits that friendship has, not just for us as individuals, but for society, right? Friendship is related to community resilience. It's related to lowered extremism. It's related to community health. It's related to people actually being willing to sacrifice for their neighbors more, trust in government, civic participation, economic outcomes. So if you want to just make it, fungible dollars, value friendship. That is the one thing. And then leaving the house, however you have to do it. Just leave the house and make a friend. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be the same way that dating is uncomfortable. You have the same feeling of, did my friend like me as much as I like them? Are we on the same level? Even though we don't have the language to even talk about it, that friend flirting is uncomfortable. And we want our friends to like us as much as we like them, especially in the beginning when we don't know if that's true. I just made a new friend recently and I got out of the Waymo and I was like, God, I hope she had fun too. Do you think she had fun? Is she going to call me? Should I text her or should I call her? What do I do? When do I set up our next date? It's the same thing as dating and it's uncomfortable, but it's worth it.
Jaimie, thank you so much for coming on the show. We've got a bunch of questions for you over on Substack as well.
Yes.
But first, where can people find more of your work?
So you can go to UCLA to look up the work that we are doing in the Krems lab or the Social Minds lab, and particularly the new UCLA Center for Friendship Research. It is the first of its kind hub dedicated to decoding and actually strengthening our human friendships. This doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and we are at the forefront of it at UCLA. So go there.
And head on over to Substack to see Jaimie answer your questions.